name is Michele Usibelli, and I am an artist. I split my time between Washington State and Montana. I've kind of taken a circuitous path to get to being an artist, but I'm an architect by training. I have made the transition to full-time painter once I started taking my first art classes, thinking that it would be just for a temporary amount of time, but it has become a lifelong passion. So no, I am a full-time professional working artist. My goal has always been to say more with less brushstrokes. So I don't want to put every single detail down. I want to leave a lot for the viewer to fill in on their own. So when I first started painting, coming from this background of very technical, tight drawing, it was a very frustrating few years to have an idea in my head of what I wanted to create and what I was seeing in my head, but then what was actually coming out on the canvas. There was a disconnect between those two. So I'm always trying, and I still continue. My goals now, as they always have been, are continued to be less and less detailed and more abstract and impressionistic with my approach. I'm always pushing the limits. I'm always trying to play with color. And when I get negative responses, I'm like, oh yes, I've done something a little different, and it's not expected. Since I first started painting, I try to paint from life as much as I can. Living in Seattle or Montana, when the weather isn't always conducive to getting outside and painting plein air, if I do a couple paintings from reference photographs, I will always set up a still life or go outside and paint plein air, just to get my mind going, get creative and get out of that tight box of just painting from reference photos. And really painting from life brings in such a freshness and a freedom into your artwork. The other thing I do a lot of, and the public doesn't see these, I do a lot of abstract, almost graffiti type art on huge panels with cans of spray paint and molding paste. And so those are completely unplanned, spontaneous pieces of work. And all of this is to help me loosen up and just keep myself loose and get out of this rigid, tight time frame tightness that a lot of artists kind of fall into when they continue to work from photographs all the time. There's not a medium I do not at least experiment with, but one thing about M-Gram over the years, because I use all these different mediums, I've found that with their acrylics and their gouache and their oils, there's just a consistency across all those mediums that I get with M-Gram. And I consider myself a colorist, and I know if I get with M-Gram, I love olive green. I know every time I order an olive green oil paint, it will be that color. And because for me, even little nuances in recipe changes, or it really messes with my process, and I feel like I learn it all over again. So lots of things, but I think the consistency and the customer support has been, it's just been unmatchable. I've not come across a gouache that acts like M-Gram's gouache. I don't apply it like a watercolor. I apply my gouache more like an oil. And I think it's that honey in the M-Gram that allows me to still do these thick impasto passages in my gouache painting, which I can't do with other brands. So along with the paint application, though, the honey also, it really slows down the drying time of the gouache, especially if you're doing outside plein air painting with gouache. And if it's a windy day, or if you're in a dry environment, that's the biggest gripe that people have about gouache. It's like it's drying too fast, and it's so hard to work with. And so if I use a stay wet palette and I use the M-Gram gouache, it's workable for so much longer. And that's huge when you're trying to do get a painting done. You don't have to fight that drying time. One thing I love with M-grams are the quinacridones, and I use those colors. Now those are transparent. A lot of them, they're transparent, and they they mix so well with other colors just to create just a phenomenal variation and ability to create so many different little color nuances. I tone whether any medium I'm using, I'll always tone my substrate with like a metallic gold or a warm color. And so with all my oil paintings, I tone my canvas or my panels with the quinacridone gold, nickel quinacridone gold, which is an M-gram color. And in my work, I do a lot of scratching out versus just applying paint. So I just love that warm gold kind of coming through. You don't see it unless you're really looking for it, but that is consistent with all of my work, is that undertone. So you can always find my updated workshop calendar on my website. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well, Michele Usibelli Art. And yeah, I'm just, I've got lots of upcoming fun events that I'm working for, and I always, I'm learning how to say no, so I'm not overcommitted, but I'm always so excited to be involved in doing things and the opportunity to see other artists. And and M-gram has supported me and my workshop attendees, and we're grateful for that, because I've been able to introduce all of my students to the product, and they've all really appreciated it as well. So we owe M-gram a huge thank you as well.